and thank you for coming today. Thank you for the organizers of this great event. This is an amazing turnout. Thank you for the supporters that made this possible. As you just heard, Design Outreach, we are creating life-sustaining products for people in developing countries. So this is to empower them to pull out of poverty. And we're in a very ambitious program to solve the water pump crisis, as with this life pump, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, what is Design Outreach? Well, we're a network of dedicated, highly skilled, mostly engineers and designers who've pulled together and offering our unpaid services to work together and solve some of these pressing humanitarian challenges. And we can do this by leveraging this amazing network of technical partners, as well as manufacturing partners to prototype our ideas, as well as manufacturing and financial partners that help make it work. And our goal is to always solve big impact problems, so taking things to scale that would solve large-scale issues. But Design Outreach didn't just happen overnight. We started in various ways. It was about 2006 for me, where I was on a short-term missions trip to a country in Central Asia, and I noticed firsthand how people were using everyday products, the things that they had locally available to them, that we would consider trash or junk, and they were repurposing them to build what they needed. At the time, I was working at APTE, just down the street here in Columbus, and I was a junior engineer, working in machine and product design as a mechanical engineer. And I was really inspired by what I saw, the amazing creativity. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if trained engineers and designers could come alongside these very creative people and help them scale their solutions to find what they needed. This is an image that I took. This is an image that really I can point back to and say this is where it all started for me. I saw this old car that was put up on its side. This is a common sight, not necessarily a retaining wall for a car, but a common sight in developing nations where you'll see items repurposed and solve a real problem for next to nothing. And everybody has seen pictures and heard about the poverty crisis in the country and in the world, but I had never seen it up close and personal like that. This was my first trip out of the country, besides going to Canada, which doesn't really count, and I saw how this was so much different than what I had experienced growing up in America. I remember as a 5 or 6 year old, about this tall, if you can picture that, where I was in Sunday school class learning about Jesus and how he cares for the poor, and realizing that I wanted to do the same, but I didn't know how to do it or where I could do it. But when I was in Central Asia, I realized there was something I could do, and I could do it as an engineer. So I came back to my cubicle, and I started dreaming about what to do and how to do it, and realized very quickly that a lot of my colleagues had very similar interests. So it was a widespread interest, it's just people didn't know how to plug in and get started. So one of the first things we did was kind of explore what was being done, and a few inspirational books kind of led this charge. We learned that some 90% of the world's products are designed for only 10% of the population, which is just astounding to us. We learned about these concepts of developing appropriate technology that's available and affordable at the local level versus being subsidized or given away, and how that can work in a sustainable way. And also, I was really interested in kind of these ideas of using a MacGyver approach of using local materials like bamboo and straw and bubble gum to build amazing machines. And so this is really inspiring. And we decided to tackle our first problem. And what we called it is a palm oil press. So this thing is our first device that we developed. We were working with an NGO based in Africa who had this idea for a micro-enterprise opportunity where they would go into villages and give them a tool to help extract oil from palm fruit needed for either cooking or selling as a small business. And they needed a more efficient way of doing that. So my team of colleagues, we organized ourselves. We had several brown bag lunches, worked afterwards, after work hours, and we developed this prototype. We gathered all of the requirements. We asked all the questions. We did all the testing. We packaged it up. We shipped it over to Africa. Well, a few months later, we finally get some feedback from the field. And we were excited to get the feedback, except for the problem was it was a huge flop. It wasn't at all what they wanted. We built it exactly to spec. We did it exactly the way that we knew how to do projects, except for we missed a real key element, and that was the anthropological aspect of working with these end users that are much different than we are. So instead of giving up, we decided to regroup. We decided to to develop our own design principles to figure out how to do this better so that we wouldn't make the same mistakes. We developed a motto, actually adopted one from the late great Coach Hebner. He would say, make a plan, work the plan, and then plan for the unexpected. And so that was our new motto. After that project completed, we decided to tackle something else. And the problem of this water pump crisis was presented to us, as you've heard from some of these other great speakers. We learned from this organization that operates in the Central African Republic, the CAR, this organization called ICDI. They work in a community development capacity. They go in and work in villages, and one of the things they do is put in a water pump, and then they maintain that pump for the village. So it works for a long time. They told us there was two major problems that they couldn't solve, and it was costing them a lot of money, and it was giving them great difficulty. Number one was the pumps are failing prematurely. So a lot of times, the pumps would get put in the ground and fail after just 6 months of use. And number two, they weren't able to reach the deepest depths. So that was a major problem. They just simply wouldn't get water. And so we started doing some research and discovered that this wasn't just a problem for the middle of Africa, but this was really a problem for the entire continent as well as the world. We learned that there's about 350,000 water pumps roughly. These are hand-powered pumps, places where electricity is just not an option, where each pump services about 300 people. And out of that 350,000, 125,000 are broken today. And in fact, that statistic is a few years old. We were just in a meeting with leaders from World Vision, and World Vision said this number is probably closer to 200,000 pumps that are broken today. And we knew that this was just astounding by looking at the numbers of people who used to have water and then have lost access. So it's not people who still need water, it's just the people who had water and lost it, and over $1 billion of lost investment. And these are just wide spread problems. We knew as problem solvers that we could fix this. We decided to collaborate, to bring other like-minded people together, people with skills in the areas that we needed. And quickly, we partnered with a team of people from a Johnson & Johnson company, including my co-founder, A. Bright. We partnered with several manufacturers, including CPEX and Exact Machine Corporation, and we decided that we would tackle this problem head-on. One of the first things we did, though, is we examined the problem. So too often, we jump to a solution before really thinking about the problem. So we asked ourselves, what is the problem? Is it that pumps are breaking, or is it that people need clean water? Well, we concluded people need clean water, so there's a variety of ways to do that. Filters, chlorine tablets, rain catchment systems, a variety of ways. And we just kept driving back to what are the demands out of the field? What are people telling us? When we did our anthropological studies, what was that telling us about the end user? And it kept coming back to a new deep well pump was needed. So we decided to do some research. We found out that this pump shown on the screen, it's called the Moino pump. This is obsolete now, but it's beloved. It was made in the late 70s and early 80s and installed, and many of them are still actually operating today in Africa. So it's a very proven design. The trouble is it was discontinued in the mid-80s, and this was one of the few pumps that would reach the deepest wells, and replacement parts are no longer available today. So we took this pump as inspiration. We said, let's look at this. Let's completely re-engineer, completely redesign a brand new pump based on what's called a progressive cavity pump system and get this out in the field and really solve this problem. So after many, many hours of research and about 30 or so volunteers, our technical partners who've come together, we decided to come up with this new solution, which we call the Life Pump. It plugs into what we call the total water solution. So the Life Pump is shown here. The Life Pump it looks relatively simple. You basically turn the handles in rotary action. It turns a drive rod down to the bottom of your well, whatever depth it is, to up to 500 feet. And it brings water out the spout and into the container. This pump is a proven design. It's considered highly reliable. We put a tremendous amount of engineering and thought into the efficiency of this. So we knew that our end users were women and children. And we knew that they wanted to get approximately 2.5 or 3 gallons per minute based on how much time they have to stand in line and how far they have to carry the water. We put a great deal of thought into the entire system of increasing its factors of safety, doing things that would make it easier to get more water out, which was quite a challenge. We're also including what's called a remote monitoring system into this, which is an add-on. So if it were to go bad, it would not stop the operation of the pump. However, this is an experimental spout you'll see here. It has a sensor that's mounted on the spout, and we're able to tell in real time from anywhere in the world if this pump is operating and how it's operating. And this is extremely important because we know that even if we build a pump that could last 10 times or 20 times or 100 times longer than anything else out there, someday it's going to break. It's just like in your car. You can buy a high-quality car, but it's still going to need an oil change. It's still going to need its tires rotated. And we knew that, except for we didn't want it to be breaking down all the time, which was very costly. So we combine this with a proven model of a village committee, which is usually like a board, an elder board within a village that takes ownership over the pump. They make sure that everybody is taking care of the pump. They make sure that it's not being abused. They also collect a small maintenance fee, which is affordable to even $1 a day for people. And this pays for basically an insurance program. So the insurance program is a maintenance team that comes by and maintains the pumps, no questions asked. And this is a small business opportunity for the Africans themselves. Now, we couldn't possibly do what we're doing without our amazing, dedicated team of partners. These are just some of our doers, as we call them. So too often, we saw a lot of people thinking and talking about how they would do something, but they don't take action, they don't do stuff. But we were really action-oriented. We wanted to make sure and get out there and keep moving. And this is just an amazing team. We couldn't do it without our financial partners. We're able to leverage a relatively small amount of money, which is very, very unique to what we're doing, to do amazing things. We've prototyped these water pumps. We're actually taking one to Africa, or two of them to Africa in March here. We would have been there right now today, except for you always have to work within the problems of rebel groups and organizations that are operating in Africa. Our team has seen leaps and bounds in what we're doing. Once we've prototyped, once we've shown this pump, we've had an amazing network of people coming around us, wanting to see us be successful. And so that's one lesson that we learned is in the beginning, it was a little slow, a little discouraging. When we started to show people that we could do something, we got the amazing support we needed. However, we're still not there. We still need more support, more networks, but it's just a fun journey to be on right now. There was a recent report from the United Nations organization, UNESCO. This is a very interesting read. It talks about how engineers are uniquely qualified to help solve some of the world's technical challenges, the humanitarian problems that are out there. It's a great read. I'd recommend it to anybody. I want to encourage both engineers and business people and a variety of other majors to collaborate, to pull together, and to work together on projects. We speak different languages. So like engineers and business people speak very different languages. For instance, engineers will say things like FEA or FMEA. Does anyone know what that means? A few out there. Or stress and strain. And business people will say things like revenue, cash flow, just in time. But as many of you know, many of us speak the same language, which is social entrepreneurialism. And so that's something that we can really work together and solve these problems. We've realized this importance early on in the development of design outreach. We decided, as a technical core team, that we definitely needed more people in areas like banking and accounting and business. So we've purposely added those people to our leadership, and it's worked out really well. So in conclusion, I encourage you to take action now. One of the major holdbacks for a lot of folks is to wait until you're set in retirement or you have millions in the bank and think that that's when you can do something. But if you're out there solving a real problem that has real needs and you have a real solution, people will come behind you and back you like you wouldn't believe. It's been an amazing journey. It's been a huge step of faith for both my family and I by leaving the traditional so-called stable engineering career to enter social entrepreneurialism. But it's something that I would never do differently. It's something that I've never turned back and said, I wish I did that different. So I just really thank you today for your time and attention. If you have any questions about the pump or what we're doing at Design Outreach, how we can help solve your problems, if you'd like to join us and work with us, or if I can just help and give you advice, I would love to do so. So feel free to contact us through the website or afterwards here. Thanks a lot.